Test, test, test. I don't know why it's not working. I mean, it's working over here, but it's not working over there. Doesn't even make sense. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Test, 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 test. Okay. There we go. Okay, hello? Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Oh. Test, 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 test. Okay, all right. Yes, that is right. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How do I add a pinned link? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, I'll find it. Oh, my audio sounds really bad. Oh, I don't know why. Oh yeah. What do I link? The StreamYard? So just the link at the top. Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like there's a fan going off in the background. Okay. How is it now? Test, test. Speaking. Trying to get it. Apparently, I only come out from one ear. Yeah, it's good. Okay. Well, I'm speaking right into the mic as we speak right now. Oh shit. Okay, well now I'm going to turn up the gain and see if that helps at all. It's turning up the gain casually. I'm not really trying to talk that loud. Ah. Yeah, no, it's not the fan. It's I don't know what it is, honestly. I just set this I literally just got home like 10 minutes ago. Ah. I have a scar. Does anybody here have a Scarlet Focusrite? Nobody has a Scarlet Focusrite. I'm looking up how to fix this really quick. Restart the device. Maybe I'll try a different XLR cable. Okay, hold on. I have a solution. Is it any better? Much better? Usable? Okay, okay, that's good. That is good. All right. I think it's good. I just pinned it, so and I said click to watch the mainstream here, so I think that'll be good. Sorry about that.
Have the wonderful Shannon Q joining us today, all the way from Canada. And you are a YouTuber who debates about religion and psychology. You are an expert in psychology and cognition, perception, things of that nature. So it is a great pleasure to have you here. And of course, Geo from Among the Shadows. And later we are going to have Nina Paley.
This is my old camera. I have to. My new
Yes.
one's more light. Yeah.
And later on, we are going to have Nina Paley joining as well. So I would like to start this up from Glink's point of view. Glink, you got very passionate about this particular subject. I want to know why you got so passionate about it, and what exactly do you see pornography having to do with the human mind? And then I would love to get Shannon's point of view as well.
The way I see it, porn is an activity. Watching porn is an activity. And maybe this is not true for everyone, but it's not just another form of TV or, movies, these kinds of more passive things that we watch, that we're used to watching, that we're used to consuming. Porn is a form of media that is interactive, that, you know, for a lot of men especially, I think for women it's a little different, but I'm sure they can relate, where it's something, you watch porn to get stimulated and you jerk off and there's a release, you know, there's a kind of a process there. And I've compared it to a drug, but whether or not you call it a drug, it doesn't really matter, because what I'm really arguing for is that the experience of watching porn and the experience of jerking off to porn that's often accompanied with it is a very potentially addictive, harmful thing. But more than that, it's something that's a perversion of reality. It's a perversion of our own nature. It's a perversion of something. You could call it sacred. You could call it important. I mean, I think we all value sexual relationships. I think we all value relationships in general, and we all value love. And those things are affected by pornography consumption. And more to the relevant point of just where we are today, all of that being said, the most important thing is that Gen Z and younger people growing up today, they are growing up where they have instant access to tens of thousands of pages, you know, infinite pornography for free from their devices, from anything. And that's just something that wasn't around 20 years ago to the extent that it is now. And it wasn't normalized to the extent that it is now. So all that being the case, I view this as a big, you know, an issue of our time. I think porn is the opiate of the masses in the modern age. That's the short version of it.
But just to be clear, when you're saying porn is the opiate, do you mean that in the real sense or just in the metaphoric sense?
They're both the same thing, because while opium is a drug, a substance that you consume, the effect is what I'm talking about. The effect on culture, on people, in terms of like, it keeps people somewhat subdued. It keeps people in a sort of what we'd call like a, you know, this person is just off in a dream state or whatever, you know, they're in la la land, except it's with, overstimulating pornography, which is detached from reality. It's like, whereas someone in someone who's on opium or whatever, maybe they're just like blissed out or whatever. But what I'm saying is that it's effectively the modern day opiate of the masses.
Well, Shannon,
very much so.
Yeah. Well, Shannon, you got that information, so go for it. Let me know what you think.
Defend the prawn, as we like to call it for OPSEC spelling, prawn.
Okay. Well, I can speak towards how porn operates from a neuroscience perspective. So what actually happens in your brain when you're viewing porn. There was a lot in there, and I think that they can, each of Glink's points can probably be addressed, individually to a certain degree. Some of them would pertain to neuroscience, some of them would be more sociological. I can speak more to the general psychology and the neuroscience surrounding it. So I get maybe addiction is probably a good place to start, or brain damage. But before I speak towards it, I want to make sure that I'm addressing a point that he's actually making. So I just want to make sure that I'm very clear. So Glink, do you believe that porn causes actual physical damage to the brain?
Not in, I think that's just, I would never argue that point, because I think that's just oversimplifying a very complex phenomenon that on one level is just something you're stimulated by. But like I said, I think it's tied, I would tie it to the activity of jerking off when I'm discussing it for the most part, but it doesn't have to be. But anyways, yeah.
Okay. So that's actually probably a good jumping off. I'm glad to hear you say that, because it demonstratively doesn't, right? So it doesn't cause anything that would even like closely be an analog to brain damage. But what porn does and can do when you're talking about jerking off is activate a portion of the brain that's called the striatum. And the striatum in the brain is part of an overreaching system called the basal ganglia. And what the basal ganglia does, and specifically the striatum, they're part of not just the reward center, but they're part of the portion of the brain that creates habits. So, and also controls motor function, like volitional motor function, and interacts with another part of the brain called the hippocampus. So when you're viewing porn, it activates multiple parts of the brain. So it activates the striatum, It activates the overall basal ganglia. It activates the prefrontal cortex. It activates the limbic system. The limbic system is the system that controls kind of like the autonomic functions and sexual drives. And it activates the hippocampus, which has to do with memory. So what your body does, or what your brain does for your body at that point, is say, okay, like, we like this. It's good. We're going to activate the motor functions and the physiological functions that are required to enjoy this. We're going to register that we enjoyed it, so that this is a thing that we like, and potentially seek it out again. Now, that's a fully natural thing for your brain to do. Like, your brain, it releases that dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, which are the chemicals that cause your neurons to fire. And the dopamine is like the reward one, like it's the good one. It's what most of the drugs elicit, but it does this all naturally. So this is part of the natural physiological function of your brain. So when you're watching porn,
I have a quick question.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Or maybe I'll
Sorry,
wait till you're done. I don't want to.
No, I would never be done. I'll prattle on about the brain until the end of time.
Well,
Go ahead and interrupt me.
It does rewire certain pleasure pathways.
Everybody's got questions. All kinds of questions.
So you're saying there's nothing unnatural about it. I mean, what do you consider natural in that case?
So what I consider natural from a brain perspective is that your brain is reacting to an external perceptual stimuli in the way that we would expect. So when you see something sexual that turns you on, we would expect to see certain systems activate, and we would expect to see that more times than not, right? If your brain is functioning optimally. And when you're viewing porn, the systems that we'd expect to see activate the way that we would expect them to. So that is natural.
Okay. Well, I would take it a step further, and maybe you're not willing to go here. I would say nothing about pornography is natural. Nothing about watching something on a screen is natural to the human development, to evolution, to biology, to anything that we've known for the past. Like I said, I mean, this is a relatively new invention. It's been 20 years since we've had porn. It's completely, it's a simulated experience. And so I wouldn't consider that natural at all.
Did you say it's only been 20 years that we've had pornography?
Since we've had digital pornography accessible.
Okay. So you're talking about like the volume and frequency of availability?
But also,
right,
yes. I think the manifold, like the different sensations as well.
Yeah, the experience is what matters to me. The experience of watching it. The sensations involved, the areas of the brain that are activated. You know, if it's just viewing a printed out picture of porn, I haven't done a study on this, but I would guess that, like, if it's like a nude image, right, on a poster, I don't think that would activate you the same way, stimulate you the same way that, like, watching a video for 5 minutes would, let's say.
It can. It absolutely. So it's going to activate the same systems from like a limbic system and a striatum, and there's a part of there's a dopamine activating system that's called the ventral tegmental. The VTA is probably the best way we'll call it the VTA, because that's what they call it in the literature for the most part. So that's going to release dopamine. That's going to flush dopamine through your system. That could happen when you view an image. It could happen when you view a movie. It could happen when you see a person like in front of you. All of those things could activate the same system. So it's kind of but it can be context dependent. So you can have these systems activate in viewing like a picture, or you could no longer, like, you could kind of get like a fatigue towards the picture, which maybe is what you're talking to, where like there's this volume where people have it more readily available to them, and because they're now be able to be sated with their desires to view these things that's more readily available to them, they can kind of form a habit that causes them to not be sated or satiated as easily with just viewing a picture? Or do you feel as though the additional complexity and component of a video, because it could activate your prefrontal cortex a little bit more if there's a narrative involved, like if there's a narrative involved in the video,
I would just say, I'm just thinking about the senses. Like, if it's a still image, that's one. The senses and novelty are the two things, and I don't know the scientific terms for this exactly, but like for example, I know enough to know that you just from experimental point of view that one image is not going to be as interesting to the brain, to me, to anyone, as a series of images, a video, if you will. And also the audio from the video is going to elicit a certain sensation, a level of immersion, a level of stimulation that, you know, absent of that audio. You have your imagination, of course, and I'm all for the imagination, but I think also part of this whole thing is that I think porn is kind of like anti-imagination, because it, instead of you just imagining some sort of sexual fantasy and maybe pleasuring yourself to that, I don't even necessarily have a problem with that. I just have a problem with porn because I think it takes that imagination or that desire for sex, and it warps it into this distorted, simulated, and detached form of media that we consume and that we form habits out of consuming.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that I'm fully processing and understanding what you're saying, because I'm very much big on making sure that I'm actually speaking towards what the person's actually saying. That's super important. I don't want to talk past you. So it seems to me as though what you're saying is that, you know, like, well, we'll put just plain pictures aside, and when we're talking about porn, we'll talk about like fully digital media where there's audio and video and dialogue. Maybe there's dialogue. Maybe there's dialogue. Who knows? Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. And that's a more complex interaction for your brain. And I would agree with that. Absolutely. That's why I brought up narrative, because it's going to activate different regions just from a sensory perception, like standpoint. Like you're going to activate your temporal lobe if you're hearing something more so. If you're just seeing something, you're only going to activate more so your occipital lobe, because that's where your vision is processed. So yeah, totally agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. So where I get kind of maybe off the rails with it is thinking that your brain treats registering sex differently based on the medium. Because I'm not sure that there's a whole lot of evidence for that from a neuroscience perspective. Because your brain isn't reacting, like the parts of your brain that are reacting to viewing a sexual image, they're not the same parts of your brain that are cognitively involved in like trying to contextualize it and figure out how you feel about it. They're very sort of visceral midbrain and hindbrain structures.
So you're
They're like
saying,
reflexive.
If you could simplify that, you're saying that you're not sure if there's evidence that looking at an image the evidence for what exactly? I'm just... For
it activating different regions of the brain from a registering this is sexy and I like it standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But it does change preference behaviors, though. It does change. It does have a sort of cumulative effect upon certain paraphilias and fetishes. I think that research into these things are
that's a whole different story, because I guess I could agree with you there.
My opinion is that they're purposefully stuttered from academia because it leads to very politically incorrect conclusions. My opinion.
They have studied it in academia, actually. So they've studied.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to get down the.
We'll get there a little bit later. But I want
whether
to get
or
back
not
to the
pornographic preferences change over time, they change towards extremes, and those extremes inform one's identity. I think that
has to do with maladaptive habit formation.
Right.
Well, how do you think that happens then? How do you think maladaptive habit formation occurs?
I love that question. That's a super good question, because it's that can be very context dependent, and there's a couple of things that are involved. So one of the things that are involved, like from a neuroscience perspective to maladaptive habit formation, is potentially a general predisposition. You could have a general predisposition where your dopaminergic production system just isn't operating optimally, and you become like a sensation seeker, right? So this doesn't necessarily mean that porn is the outlet that you're using. Video games could be what you use. You could be a gambler. You could be
just for the sake of. Yeah, I understand. But
yeah.
So do you acknowledge at all, how do you fit in the role of the environment, which is...
That was part two.
Yeah. Well, like in this case, the environment is the internet, and the internet is full of porn. So, like, in response to a maladaptive behavior becoming more prevalent throughout society, I think the first place I would look is, well, where in the environment have there been changes in the past few years on a massive scale that people are
Right.
engaging with these activities? I think that's probably the main reason. I don't think that's a big leap to assume such a thing. You know what I mean? It's
So are you saying that you believe that there's more people are generally more prone now because of the access to porn to
Yes.
maladaptive habit formation?
yes.
I don't know the answer to that, to be honest, but porn isn't the cause of maladaptive habit formation so much as it is an outlet, almost like a type of self-medication.
But how do you know that? You're assuming it's an. I mean, it's both, obviously. But like,
Yeah.
But okay, go on. Sorry, I don't want you to cut you off. But what I'm trying
That's
to
okay.
figure out
I
is
have a point that'll help me change my mind.
okay, because your perspective is like, porn is used as an outlet for these people who might already have, for whatever number of reasons in their life, genetically or environmentally, a predisposition to want to
Likely
be.
combination.
Yeah, like,
certain paraphilias. and
Likely
stuff.
a combination of the two. Yeah.
sure, yeah. But yeah, this gets in this like nature versus nurture, obviously. But
I think it's always both.
yeah, it is always both, right?
It is always both.
But I would say to in the past 100 years, nature has been altered far more than, the environment has been altered far more than human physiology, if that makes sense.
So there could be something to be said for the fact that having ready access to something that is known to be something that people will utilize if they have like a dopamine reduction and having less social connections, because that's where most people get their endogenous hits of dopamine on a day-to-day basis. So having less social connections and feelings of isolation will lead you towards these maladaptive behaviors, because your system is essentially saying, okay, well, I'm becoming like I'm not getting the stimulation that I need in order to maintain a stasis where I'm happy and functioning. So if I have consistent access to something that's going to get me that quick hit, I'm going to be able to do it consistently, I may do that over and over again to the point that it becomes a habit. And when it becomes a habit, what happens in your brain is that the dopamine that initially gave you the euphoria isn't going to be produced as much because it's not supposed to be. Like, from a developmental perspective, our brains give us that dopamine hit so that we can know, okay, well, this is a good thing. This is great for survival. This is something that we like. This is a thing that we should learn how to do more. And once that happens consistently enough, your brain does what it's supposed to do. And it kind of puts it on autopilot, kind of like riding a bike, right? So your brain says, okay, well, this is a thing that we're going to do consistently. We don't need to give you that euphoric feeling anymore. The problem lies in this is where it becomes maladaptive. If you were using that behavior to get that dopamine hit, if that was the point of you engaging in that action, and then you're no longer getting that dopamine hit, now the thing that you were doing to satiate yourself is no longer a form of satiation. So you now engage in additional sensation seeking. So the problem isn't the porn itself. The problem is the underlying cause that drove you towards that sensation seeking. So if that problem is isolation, if that problem is that you have like the type of brain that's more prone to generalized depression, if that problem is that you maybe have other neurological or developmental neurodivergence, then those problems being addressed will help you kind of, or you like setting different types of goals will help you like move yourself away from that maladaptive behavior.
Okay. I understand what you're saying. Okay, let me just try to rephrase it so that I want to make sure we're on the same page.
Sorry, I'm super vocal.
No, you're fine.
I'll
You're
mute.
fine.
I have a rebuttal to that. But
Uh-oh.
we got Glink.
Okay, then let me just make sure we're on the same page,
Yeah.
and then we can go from there. The way I see what you're explaining, you're basically saying that if somebody has an addiction to porn, let's say, it's not the porn that's the problem, it's their whatever it is in their brain, their system, their body that's malfunctioning,
Their
essentially.
environment,
That is, their environment. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't view porn as part of that environment, though?
the porn is part of the environment. Sure, everything that exists is part of your environment. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So
Of
then,
course,
how is
yeah.
that not part of the problem if it's part of the cause?
I don't know that it's necessarily part of the cause because
But-
it's the opium that you were talking
Yeah.
about, I guess, in that scenario.
Yes.
So it's what you're seeking in order to get the good feeling, right?
Okay.
So I guess it's a problem in so much as it gives you that good feeling, and then your brain does the thing it's supposed to do and says, "Oh, okay, well, we formed a habit around this. We don't need to flood ourselves anymore. We know how to do this now." And then it doesn't give you that good feeling anymore. So and that could be a different outlet, right? Like like I said, that could be video games. That
See,
could be gambling.
I
It
think
could be.
in order to avoid something here, because I think we might have two different approaches, which is like, I think what you're saying is exactly how one should think about it from a scientific and individualistic level, where it's like, if somebody had a porn addiction, them saying, well, porn is the problem isn't going to fix anything, right? Like that's
sure.
that's not useful, of course.
Yeah.
So I totally, I like, that is a useful perspective, but what I'm more concerned with, or what I'm really like talking about more so, is on a larger scale, like a societal scale. For example, with the opium example, it's like, okay, if you're talking to one person who's hooked on opium in 17th century China or whatever era it was, I don't even know. You know, you might be like, well, the opium aside, you have to rearrange your life to like have a better, healthier relationship with your environment, with the people in your life, not be so isolated. All these things are good. But on a massive scale, I would also say that the opium being flooded into China is a problem in and of itself, because it is a factor, a major factor in the environment that is leading to the creation of these bad habits, even if it's not the sole reason for it.
So I'm going to draw an important clinical differentiation between opium, and I don't know if this speaks to your analogy or not, but there's from a DSM-5 perspective, there's essentially two different types of addiction, and there's a very, very important reason why, from a clinical perspective, they're seen as different. Opium and, you know, the heroin and cocaine and things like that, what they do is they replace on your neuroreceptors the neurotransmitters that you have naturally, to the point that you stop producing them as much. So you can't just, you become physiologically dependent on that substance, right? So with porn, it's not, or any other sort of like addictive, maladaptive behavior, it's not quite the same. Like, if to get somebody off something like an opium, so in that analogy, yeah, opium 100% is the problem, because you're developing a physiological dependence that you need to introduce something like a methadone to re-regulate the neurotransmitters in. So
if you don't mind, I want to stop you there, because
Yeah, sure.
I think this is interesting, because this gets to why I call porn a drug, is
Okay.
because your perspective is, I could be wrong, but it sounds like purely scientific, and in being scientific, it's also materialistic. In other words, you draw the line at the chemical reaction of a substance that you can physically say this is a material substance that goes into your body. But and this is why I said in the onset that I'm more interested in experience, because to me, to me and millions of others, if the way I view pornography is at night before bed, jerk off, get the flood of dopamine released in my brain, get all the parts of my brain activated, and then go to sleep, versus if I do a line of coke before a party, okay, the line of coke is a substance and porn is a screen that I'm looking at and I'm doing an action, right?
I would prefer you do the porn. It's not
Right. But
You mean the phenomenological elements of it? In other words, Glink, like the
yeah,
experiential-
like that's what not to sound what that's what matters to me, because it's funny, because the word matter is like, the physical matter, right? But I'm saying what actually matters is I guess metaphysical, is the conscious experience of porn. And it's effectively a drug in that sense. It's a screen drug, or it's a visual drug. It's a simulated drug, whatever you want to call it. But the point is, it's a technology that is used to facilitate a sort of release of feel-good chemicals in the brain. And that, I think, is the primary way porn is used.
So would you say any technology that is used to facilitate the release of feel-good chemicals in the brain is a detriment?
No, I wouldn't say it's a detriment, but I would say in porn's case it is.
Why is porn somehow different?
I think porn is different because I think porn promotes a lot of these negative behaviors or fact, like you were talking about isolation, for example, talking about, there's a few other things, like say a guy who's lonely and single and wants to be with girls or wants a girlfriend or whatever.
Hello.
Yeah. I mean, which is very common, especially nowadays. And it's like, I think porn is a huge hurdle in the way of that. And it's a negative because what it does is it acts on those same sexual desires and those same desires, maybe even for, having a partner, but rather than you seeking it out, it's an easy outlet that just gives you this, that's why I view it as a negative ultimately, is because it's sort of a stimulus. I always say it's a stimulus detached from its purpose completely. Whereas like, okay, let me give you another example. I'll try to keep it short. With video games, people often compare that. But it's like, okay, but with video games, there's a lot more going on that is not tied to one specific outcome. It's like you could be playing a game with friends, you could be playing a strategy game and just like, exercising your problem solving skills, or there's all sorts of different things that video games can provide. Same thing with media we consume like YouTube. You could be using YouTube for a whole bevy of different purposes. But with porn, there's not really like, we use porn to like,
it's pretty straightforward what people use it for.
Yeah.
Let me
It's
jump
not
in
a
here.
secret.
Yeah.
Well, wait, before Gio jumps in, I just want to make sure that, would you say that you guys are more or less on the same page except for the metaphysical question? That seems to be the one that's dividing you right now, unless there's anything else.
I don't even know that it's necessarily dividing us, because it seems as though what you're saying is that your issue with it is that in at least a subset of instances, there's a group of people that are potentially overusing it, or that maybe that's not even the right term. Maybe the term is using it as a proxy for a real life relationship, and that's not healthy.
Yeah, that's one aspect. There's many other aspects. I would say another aspect.
I would say that is in fact not healthy. Like if that's how you're using it, is as a proxy for a real life relationship, for whatever reason, that's not healthy. So I'm on your same page there.
But is it a matter of an individual?
Oh, everybody wants to.
Yeah.
It's
well,
not
okay. Real fast. I know Gio, you have a lot to say, but real fast.
Harassment.
Hashtag Geo harassment. Is it a question of how many people have to be in that state for it to be considered harmful? Because we may know some people who can, jack it to porn and handle it, and then others that don't. But overall, we consider something to be harmful, like opiates was mentioned before in the chat, when you have a sizable amount of people that...
Those are always harmful.
Yes. Well,
let's be clear. Those
are always harmful.
I'm on the fence with opium, though. I think
well, as an artist,
opium, you can control it, and it produces certain creative effect. Never mind.
No. But beyond the
Don't derail me.
What I'm trying to
is
figure out
peak.
here is that when it comes to pornography, I think that it may be the amount of people. Like if we can show that there is an overwhelming amount of people that it has deteriorated their social lives, that it has prevented them from going out and seeking something. For example, like people talk a lot about how important it is to be bored. Adam Carolla had a podcast with Bill Maher where he talked about how important it was that they were bored in their youth, because that's when a lot of creativity started flowing out. And I think that there's a similar thing happening with pornography. So would you say, Shannon, that maybe Gling does have a point here as far as pornography being harmful, not just in terms of somebody handling it or not, but in terms of the sheer amount of people that have succumbed to being addicted to it?
I think it's multifaceted, because I think that any activity that you're doing that's going to cause you to be increasingly isolated isn't a good one for you, for sure, right? And everybody's individual experience is valuable and valid. Like it's important to not be dismissive of that and just go, oh, porn's good 100% of the time for everybody. Like that's a horrible way to engage in this topic. It's a non-nuanced way to look at this. So any activity that causes you to become increasingly isolated is bad. What what I think I'm maybe struggling with, and maybe it's the metaphysical thing that you were talking about, is why there's this sort of special category where you say this particular thing is not only bad like the rest, but is the worst. And is not only the worst way of like engaging in isolation based activities that kind of sate your dopamine hunger, but has a special category onto itself that makes it uniquely bad and also somehow circularly potentially the cause.
Well, because I think to answer your question, like it goes to the question of value in terms of how you place human sexuality in terms of, is it a natural chemical biological function, which yes it is,
Yeah.
but is it something that speaks to the heart of let's say either a psyche or an essence or something that is deeply related to our development?
Milk.
And as like it developed collectively as a species, and so milk. Oh my god! Now I had that joke in my head. I think the difference with porn and other drugs is because other drugs have a very one-to-one relation to affecting brain chemistry and producing certain effects. I mean, with psychedelics, we get into the debate whether there's some kind of spiritual component to it, but like that's the side issue.
Yeah.
I think that when it comes to typical stimulants, especially, they have a very one-dimensional relationship, right? I mean, some people purport that it enhances certain creative aspects and so forth, and it can act as an enhancement, but that's whatever. But when it comes to pornography, I think it's because of its ideational content that is deeply related to something that is very foundational within the human experience, which is sexuality. I think that pornography, well, first of all, in some ways, it's a cultural dead zone in the sense that when you really think of it, it's a pure utilitarian function that is divorced from its original context and how it was created within eroticism and erotica. Erotic literature and so forth was in itself a form of aesthetic and artwork that had narrative and had creativity and so forth. But pornography is really like the terminus end of action and creativity, I think what Glink was saying. But also, I doubt that it's just the underlying cause of why people cope or why porn becomes copium. Because I think that...
Copium?
Yeah, I know.
I'm too old to understand what that means. Okay.
That's an accurate term.
Now. I think
Copium,
that
okay.
pornography, it creates desires just as much as it informs desires that are already there. Now, there are some forms of what we would consider deviant or maladaptive or fetishistic or paraphilic behavior that is as old as time itself, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, certain forms of bondage and so forth. But there is something about the modern, late capitalist mass production pornography that creates desires that we consider maladaptive just as much as it preys upon the underlying thing that is there.
What do you
In my
mean?
in my opinion.
So I heard a couple of things in there that are interesting. So the first thing that I heard was that you feel as though, and correct me if I'm wrong, and this is the way I received what you said, that sexuality is an important part of individual identity.
Not
And
just individual identity. I mean, it's an important part, I think, of
Being human.
humanity in general.
well, I mean, yeah. So important part of individual identity and humanity in general. And the way that pornography these days is another thing that I'm hearing, because it doesn't seem like you have like an issue with its instantiations throughout history. It's
Because
more
throughout
so the
hi-
current
because throughout
instantiation.
history, because throughout history, it was deeply tied to eroticism, which in itself had
And now you see it has more perversion or kink, and
not just perversion and kink, but also even what we consider vanilla, the way that it is a pure sort of function of a particular type of production. It's not something, because you really can't place it. Is it art? Is
Okay,
it,
I have a
content
question.
and so forth.
Yeah.
I think
It's-
this will tie the science back into it. Correct
Okay.
me if I'm wrong. I don't think there is any single activity, barring in taking a substance, like an activity where you're just use in a sober mind state, that is as stimulating, as captivating neurologically as watching pornography. Is that not the case?
it depends on what you mean by stimulating and captivating. But from an activation in brain regions standpoint, meditation does a lot more for your brain in activating multiple regions simultaneously
Okay.
than viewing pornography does. And exercise is actually something that activates multiple brain regions in physiological reasons. It activates your proprioception, multiple brain regions, motor functions. And if you're exercising while you're listening to something, even better.
Okay.
So yeah. So I guess it depends on what you mean.
Well, I mean, in terms of things I can access right here from my computer sitting in my chair, the most stimulating thing I can do is pull up.
So you're
pornography.
talking just about things that you can view?
Yes.
Okay, so if you're talking
think
about
it's not just viewing. I think it's more. I don't want to step on Glink's point here, but I think you're talking about how pornography is something you can do with a lot of ease, while exercising and meditation it takes actual effort. While this is something that anybody could do. Anybody could just go online,
Including
find
children.
it instantly.
Well, that speaks towards the parents not being capable of curating their children's online experiences.
I disagree.
But it's not just
So you-
the ease.
Wait,
it's
I want to see why
model.
Glink disagrees.
Because
I don't know. I'm a
Th- this-
parent, so I want to hear this.
well, because there's all this, people always say, and I've heard this for literally 10 years, because this happens with everything, with games, with 4chan, with porn. It's like, well, where were
I
the
don't know.
parents? It's like
You will soon.
the common response.
Oh,
You've got a son, so you'll know what 4chan is soon enough.
Okay.
now I
Do I
don't know.
want to?
I don't know, Lev. That sounds like Reddit. No, not McKenna.
Well, he reads mangas. Anyway.
Oh, maybe. I mean, 4chan is the place to go for manga.
sorry, Glenk. I want to hear. I want to hear
Yeah.
you finish your point. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail it. I just didn't know
No,
what 4chan
it's
was.
fine. The prescriptive response is always, where are the parents? But that fails to acknowledge that where is the where do I even start with this point? Hold on, let me gather myself here.
And everybody subscribe. Who's listening, subscribe while Glink is gathering his point. Patreon.com/breaktherules.
The parents are competing with the internet. The parents are competing with who the kid watches on YouTube, on Twitch, where they spend their time. And increasingly, where people spend their time is in the online digital world, where parents have no authority, autonomy, or control, short of being like literally a tyrant in their child's life and controlling, micromanaging everything, which would probably create bigger problems than just letting them be free anyways. Short of that, it's insane to expect a parent to like somehow have the perfect way of communicating to their child without being too strict that they should never access porn and the child is just going to believe them or something to that effect. In other
I
words,
just do this. Give me your phone,
sure, but
and then I take it away.
But what I'm saying is there's always going to be ways around it, and there's an increasing number of ways around it. Like, for example, to just tie it to my own experience, and I think this is where this conversation...
Twitch streamers.
So what's your
Twitch
alternative?
streamer.
Is your
Sorry.
alternative? No. This is I think an important. So what would be your alternative? That the entire internet environment be curated to a point that
No, I don't...
everything that's
no,
available is
No.
only something that can be viewed by children?
No.
That seems like, so what's the alternative then?
Well, I'm just advocating for a belief in some sort of basic morality. I'm not saying there should be anything done. I'm not saying any laws, any censorship. I'm just saying I don't like porn because it's bad, because it's destructive, because it's harmful, because it's spiritual poison. And I believe that, and I have reasons for believing that. And if more people believe that, then more people will do something rather than just think it's normal and healthy to jerk off to porn every night and live in their fucking cave by themselves, you know?
Do you think that
They're
means
goon
that porn
caves.
should
Yeah.
porn is something that like should be purged and like shouldn't be available? So
I'm not big
just shouldn't
into
be-
I'm not big into should or shouldn't be in terms of actions on a mass scale. I'm more into
So you're
what-
just advocating to convince more people to hold your position and avoid it?
I'm advocating for people to believe that there is some value to their sexual desires and imagination beyond self-gratifying
I
behavior.
agree.
That's
I
a-
agree with that. Well, then I think that we agree.
No,
So-
I think porn should be made harder to access because the ubiquity of porn is actually, ironically enough, been the most detrimental from a totally artistic perspective. I think that it's been the most detrimental to its mass availability because the sort of proletarianization and the sort of like this like bourgeois morality just being destroyed for now porn becomes this sort of everyday kitschy thing. Subscribe to my OnlyFans. I think that that really, when porn was like seen as edgy and limited and a bit of the cutting edge, if you will, I think that is when you
Basically,
have a bit more.
It's not cool. That's the point. It's
No,
not cool
anymore.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
So
yeah.
is your argument that when it was something that was scarce and difficult to
When it was
access,
scarce,
it was
Yeah.
more
it was lo-fi.
tittillating, it was
Yeah.
more
It was 10
interesting, and
times
now
more
it's just
interesting.
far
Magazines
too
in the
readily
woods.
available. So it's like it's become boring to
Yeah.
the point that
Well-
it's habit
Yeah,
forming.
I mean, we could also
and
discuss
then-
the ethical issues as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically,
But I still want to keep it while Shannon is here. I want to
transgression
I
keep
do,
it
oh
to
shoot,
the
I do have to
brain.
leave soon. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
I do
well,
have to leave soon.
let me also check with Nina Paley. Okay, Nina needs to ask a question, so I'm gonna bring Nina in right now.
Okay,
and this has
hi.
been a fascinating conversation. Glink, Shan, and Gio, I appreciate it.
It's
All
lovely
right.
to talk to you guys.
Yeah,
Thank you for
it was great to talk with you as well.
It was nice to meet you, Glink, and it was great to talk to you.
I'm down
So-
to do it again sometime.
More hostile.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for
Well,
sure.
see, this is what I want to stress on Break the Rules, and everybody subscribe, by the way, is that we can have streams that are very chaotic and everybody's hating on each other, and we could also have streams where even though we may disagree on certain things, we can come together and speak like reasonable adults. And I think both are important things to have. I like this stream here, and I really appreciate you guys being here. So I sent Nina the StreamYard link, and while Nina is doing that, I also want to say, oh, here we go. Nina's here. I just want to say patreon.com/break the rules. You know me with the Patreon. So here we go. I am bringing Nina in. Nina, make sure that the audio is not picking up here because I hear.
Oh,
there we
there
go.
you
I just turned it off and my other machine was doing things.
Surround
Yeah.
sound.
Okay,
Wait,
so
and then-
you
Oh, shit.
specifically asked for a neuroscience question. So listening to this conversation, viewing porn is different from these other things that give people pleasure because viewing porn, for those that do it, is reinforced with an orgasm. And people generally don't, I mean, maybe y'all do, but
Not
like,
always.
when they play video games, I don't think orgasm is a big, is a crucial part of a video game or various other pleasure
Rarely.
things people do.
I don't know. Have you seen a Call of Duty?
Yeah, I
stream?
know.
Is that a statement or a question? So
Well,
I'm,
the
I'm just
quest- the
wondering what you
question
want me
is-
to contribute.
No, what I want you to contribute is as a neuroscientist.
I'm not a
you stu-
neuroscientist by trade. I don't do that for a living, by the way. So I just want to make sure that is very clear.
Okay,
I
so
study
what
it, but
you start. Okay, so have
I
you
study
read?
it. I have a degree, but I don't. That's not what I do for a living.
Okay, have
And
you-
It's an important distinction. I don't want people thinking that I'm acting. It's important. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So are what orgasms are different than other kinds of reinforcements for behaviors, and can you talk a little bit about that process, about the physical process of orgasm and what it does to the brain and what it does to learning and reinforcement and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So, a couple things initially is viewing porn doesn't automatically give you an orgasm.
I know that, but let's be realistic about
You
the
have to
people
Google
that
But
do.
for
that's
a
the
long
goal.
time
That's
before
the
that
goal.
happens.
That is what you are attempting to do usually, and it's going to give you a massive like dopamine flush. So if you're talking about learning reinforcement, we can go back to habit formation. So there's systems in your brain that I mentioned. I think I brought them up earlier. There's a series of systems called the basal ganglia. So the basal ganglia exists in the midbrain. And the reason that the basal ganglia exist is to activate and kind of communicate with your motor cortex. And your motor cortex is super active when it comes to an orgasm. It's going to involve a few of your motor functions, right? Like your clitoris or your penis are parts of your motor system, right? So activating them and getting them all excited is part of your motor cortex. So you're going to flush your brain with dopamine, and your system is saying essentially, we like this, your motor system's getting activated, they're communicating back and forth. Now, this is where the striatum come in. So the striatum has a couple of different individual components. One of the components in the striatum is called the putamen. And the putamen is what kind of like mitigates the putamen in with the rest of the basal ganglia mitigate your sense of volition towards an action. Do you know what I mean when I say like volition towards an action? like that you want to do it, like you're actively pursuing doing this thing. So if you have an orgasm, it's going to give you a bit more dopamine than you would usually get, and it's going to reinforce certain areas so you know what's pleasurable to you. So that tells your brain that this is the part I like touch. These are the things I like to see when it's touched. This is the type of area I want to be in. And it's gonna incorporate that through the system of the basal ganglia, which is incorporated with your prefrontal cortex into your hippocampus. And that's going to form a memory that says, in this set of circumstances, I like this thing and it gives me this reaction. Now, that can have a point of diminishing returns. Like when we talked about habit formation and like the bad side of these things, it can have a point of diminishing returns where it gets harder to have an orgasm, or you become sort of desensitized and they're less intense than they previously were, because you now have this habit formation that's caused your brain to go into autopilot mode. You're not getting as much of that dopamine flush. It's harder to have an orgasm now. So if you're talking about it from a reward perspective, it will activate that reward center. I think intuitively we all think to ourselves, well, we like orgasms. They're great, right? Like we want an orgasm. The orgasms are awesome. So obviously that's a better kind of reward. But from a chemical perspective, it's the same sort of chemicals that are going in, like the dopamine's producing and saying, we like this, woo, motor centers are activating. So I guess there's a little bit more of that. We're forming a memory around it. And then our serotonin flushes in when we're done and says, okay, we're satiated. That was good. We can go back to stasis now. Maybe that's a little bit more intense from a physiological perspective than other rewards. So if that's what you mean, and from a reinforcement perspective, it might lead you towards wanting that again because you have that physiological sensation along with the dopamine flushing that you can remember and easily elicit. But I don't know that you would want to necessarily quantify it as the best reward or a better reward than some other types of rewards, because that's all going to depend on your individual volition and the function towards the goal that you're intending to achieve and what that means to you. I don't know if that's a good enough answer.
No, but that's okay.
I mean,
No, but I think
I tried.
I want to make sure Nina gets her point here.
Sure.
No, I asked a question, and I probably should talk to a neuroscientist.
No, I'm not a
as opposed to
neuroscientist.
somebody
I
that-
am a hobbyist with a degree in the field, and it's super important that I make that distinction.
No, but Shannon's a very
Everybody
smart
should go
hobbyist.
look up all of this stuff themselves too. Don't think anything that I say at face value. Go look up the source. I'm a huge source methodology proponent. Go look up the source material. I may have made a mistake. This is live. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's super important. Don't just listen to talking heads. Go find the source material. If you're interested, read it yourself. Go find the science.
Well, before I go back to Glink, I wanted to ask Nina, from listening to this conversation, is there anything you think we did not cover? Is there anything that you think about the pornography question that you would want to express?
Oh, the whole, is porn destructive? Yes, there's mostly stuff you didn't cover. I mean, this ended up being a conversation mostly about naming chemical processes, which I don't really think is.
But yeah,
what
that's
this
what I
is
mean.
About. We didn't talk about the.
I'm
image of
sorry.
women.
That's why I was
Yeah.
asked here.
No,
I
that's
know that. No, you, Shannon, you did your. That's what you're here to talk about, right?
Yes.
But the question is bigger than that, right? The question
for sure.
is porn destructive. The aspect of it that you're talking about is not going to answer that question. It's
You need
it's
a theologist to
tiny
come on next.
little. Well, not a theology. There's a lot of other. It's a much bigger issue. So to answer your question, Lev, no, I mean I don't think this barely scratches anything. There's the image of women. There's the cultural perceptions of women and men. There's ideas that people get about sex. It's how they learn about sex. There's the fact that porn is made by people, that people are surrendering to media that is made by people who are not them, that they're not having direct experience, and that they are willingly opening an intimate part of themselves to external control from just complete strangers and people with profit, all kinds of motives that you wouldn't necessarily want. And that's just a few things, but the whole radical feminist
Exactly.
side.
No,
of
but I
it
think
is
these
huge.
things maybe this is on a tangent, but I still think maybe these things can relate to how the brain processes
Listen,
these.
sin is a form of slavery. That is my
I got it. Like all the things that
Comes from Saint
Nina,
Paul, okay.
Shannon, all the things that Nina mentioned right now. Would you be able to draw any connection to how the brain works with those things, or do you see these as being societal problems completely separate from the brain chemistry science?
Well, I can talk, like I said, I could talk all day about how the brain reacts to perceptual content. Whether or not porn portrays how porn portrays women, I could probably talk towards that as a woman, and what my individual perspective as a woman is, and I think that there's probably things Nina and I might agree on regarding how pornography portrays women or how the industry treats women. Those are issues from my perspective of informed consent and better representation. Not necessarily saying that porn in and of itself is bad, but maybe how it's currently being created and portrayed and who it's being marketed to needs to have a closer look. And maybe that paradigm and dynamic need to change. But I could maybe we'd agree on more than we'd disagree with there. Who knows?
No, we might. It's
I
a
don't
really,
know. I think by
really
definition
big,
you couldn't really.
it's a
ethical
very
porn, I don't know.
it's a big thing. But
Yeah.
people
it's not
who are
something
critical,
I frequently talk about. So this is just I
Well-
was asked to talk about brain
Yes.
stuff and porn. So
And I
Yeah.
definitely appreciate it. But Glink, I know that Shannon, you have to go soon. But Glink, is there
do.
any final question? I really appreciate you being here. Is there any final question you want to ask Shannon related more to the brain? Something that I think something that you think may not have been covered yet.
Well, I think, I mean, I learned in some class at some point, maybe psychology or something, about how an orgasm is the highest. There's like some scale of pleasure, and it's like eating a cheeseburger is X amount of this, and then watching a TV show is this, and orgasm is the highest that people can naturally. I'm sure like maybe heroin is more, but porn is the high, or sorry, not porn. Orgasm is the highest pleasure one can naturally experience.
that
And
could potentially be the case. I'd have to look at it.
and
Right.
well, yeah, I mean, that's basic, because the way I
That
think about it,
intuitively seems correct to me.
and the way I think about it is like, well, if that's the case, and if porn is often tied, like I said, it's this activity because it's tied to orgasming, not in every case, of course, but I think predominantly, especially for men,
goal.
it's the goal. Right. And, well, yeah, so I view that as like, certainly something that can be, that needs to be examined and looked at on a societal scale, not just on an individualist, on the scale
How
of
so? Like as a motivational factor towards consumption.
yeah, well, as a cultural impact. I mean, how does it affect relationships? How does it affect
I would
dating?
pay
How does
money for someone to research the cultural impact of orgasms just in general.
Well,
or are we only talking porn-induced orgasms?
porn-induced orgasms? Sure.
What are you doing it publicly? So I don't understand what the cultural impact is. Like, do you mean
The cultural impact
Well, the
is
orgasm has a. Well, go ahead.
if your orgasms are so strong they have cultural impact, then someone should study you specifically.
Well, it's not. It's
Orgasm
not.
itself has informed culture for millennia.
It's not my orgasm in specific. It's the phenomenon of millions of people, millions of men, young men, every night or frequently watching porn and then orgasming. What does that do for the scene of dating? What does that do for people's relationships to one another? What does that
Is
do
it the
for
combination of those two? Because I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
masturbation existed before.
It's the combination.
Like, wide range
well,
pornography.
it did, but I bet masturbation has increased tenfold since the pervasiveness of pornography. I
I'd
mean,
be
we don't have
interested
studies
to
on
see
that.
if that's the case. I don't know.
Listen,
if there
only
are.
in
It'd
the
be worth
wild-
measuring. That's interesting.
In the wild, only monkeys masturbate when they are in captivity in zoos. They don't masturbate outside of
There you
captivity.
go.
So think of
Fact
it.
that I've only had
So
access to
we're-
us at this moment.
We are being spiritually cocked by the modern world. You should Shannon,
Well,
you should read Bronze Age Mindset.
yeah, there was that thing
would be-
that Sonny was talking about in relation to the
He got that from
masturbating.
that, yeah.
Yeah, well, the masturbating, not monkeys, but the orangutans. They were
Yeah,
talking about how-
orangutans only masturbate in captivity. That's right.
Mhm. And how they're the ones that did not develop the phalanges that the male alpha orangutans are supposed to
the
develop.
flanges.
Yeah, so there was a
yeah.
whole lore about the phalanges. But I want to quickly get to the super chats because there's a couple of super chats for Shannon here. Before you
Oh,
go,
I do have to duck out like very soon. I'm like at
Oh,
my
okay. Well, here we go. Okay, so
Okay.
first, this one's for Gio. Tux loves you. $2. Come home, Italian man. We will find you a lady yet. And this one over
Well,
here.
he is Mormon, so I mean that could
Yes.
work.
Well,
that
more
could work.
man. Anyway, more men. Jenna Trinaden, 199. Ancient Greeks had porn. Shannon wins. Well, I mean, I guess it's really how you define porn. Like Gling's definition.
They had
would be
erotica,
this-
but that
Yeah. Okay, Jesus Saves, 4.99. As a Christian, I think Shannon made a lot of sense, and I think it's an individual thing. I mean, this probably is the big disagreement.
Well,
that,
St. Paul would disagree with you, but
yeah.
that,
well, no, this is a point that I was making
I almost
earlier.
never
that-
make sense.
No, you're perfect. I mean, is this something that if enough people have this addiction, that we could say that this is an objective bad? I think we're all kind of on the same page about that, at least. That if enough people have this and it's addictive, then it can be said to be objectively bad, and it will be better if they spend their time doing something else. Although I remember you did say one thing about there being some, I don't know if you said creativity in porn or that there was some good quality that you saw in porn. I don't want to keep you, but if you could make the case for one good thing about porn, what would it be, Shannon?
Oh, a good thing about porn would probably be that it actually I see it as kind of like amoral. So a good thing about porn would be that it allows people to sate themselves and maybe explore components of their sexuality that they wouldn't otherwise be exposed to or be familiar with. And it could potentially normalize things that in an informed consensual environment that they would have otherwise not seen as being okay, or it was portrayed to them in their social environment that it wasn't okay. Like I'm bisexual, for example, and being able to see two women being together in a porn environment helped to teach me that, oh, okay, like this is okay. Like there are other people that do this, and like that's fine. So it helped to kind of like inform me. And also, if done correctly,
that's bad. That's bad. Shannon, no.
I
totally
I
disagree.
I see the gears turning in Nina's head. I really got to let Nina say some. I don't know if you have anything to say.
No, Shannon is absolutely correct. Like that is absolutely something that porn does. It's just we disagree on how much of a good that is, because there's a lot of paraphilias that are a burden to the people that have the paraphilias, and young men in particular, they're very vulnerable. Male sexuality, in my experience, and this has been reinforced by things that I've read, male sexuality, men get stuck in stuff that they see and think when they're like 13 and 14, and it never goes away. Women change a lot more sexually over the course of our lives, but having been with a number of men, I mean, anecdotally, I can say like, yeah, they're very, very hung up on whatever turned them on when they were 14. And so that the fact that there are these 14-year-old boys exposed to the fantasies and productions of adult men who don't have their best interests at heart has led to the creation of paraphilias that are very difficult for these men to live with. Very difficult. I've been talking more to autogynephiles recently, and that is a really tough paraphilia to live with, and it doesn't go away. And it's so difficult to live with that some of these men they opt for castration. It's rough. So
You're talking about trans women?
I'm talking about autogynephiles. some of whom,
That's the third rail.
yeah. Anyway,
I do have to go. It's not because of that, but I do have to go.
Well, it's because of that.
Well, I mean,
that's another debate for another time.
yeah, it's another debate. But anyway, it's a tough one to live with. It's like not easy. And
if you get affirming care, it's not that difficult to live with, so long as the society around them is affirming and not attempting. I'm going to go. This was a lovely conversation.
Shannon, thank you so much for coming in.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Everybody,
See you later.
everybody subscribe to Shannon. Man, that was
And
like
that is the problem with libertine
no,
amorality right
Shannon was
there.
great.
she was very good. Yes, she's.
Yeah.
But we
she
could
has a-
see if the conversation went longer, then we would have seen what happens. But anyways,
Yeah, no, that was a very interesting conversation, and I'm very thankful for Shannon being here with us and Glink as well.
she dipped out at the right time, in my opinion.
Yes, I want to make sure, by the way, that before we go, that Nina, that you have a chance to talk about. Well, first of all, what you did not have a chance to talk about in relation to this conversation, you listened to Glink and Shannon talk about it. Now, regardless of all the brain stuff, Glink is much more spiritual when it comes to why he sees pornography being a problem. You, despite making a lot of movies that are, I'd say, very spiritual, in terms of their subject matter, you are an atheist. And I'm curious, what is the difference here then between your two perspectives on pornography?
I'm curious
Well,
too. Yeah.
I mean, you can be an atheist and have spiritual inclinations. I really think that the healthiest way to regard sex is that it is a mystery. And I was raised with very liberal, pro-sex ed parents in the 70s. And it's funny that I hear people sort of redoing this. That people seem to have these ideals of like, tell kids about all sex and everything, and it's all great, and it's all so healthy, and any kind of sexual expression is healthy. And that's what I was raised with. And
give them funny pills.
And that's what I, acted on in my youth. And with some hindsight, I have no real answers. Repression is no fun either. But I can say that there's a kind of idealism of libertinism with sex that did not, in spite of the best intentions of myself and the people who raised me with these ideals, it did not make my life good or easier. And in hindsight, I am just like, this is a mystery. There's a reason that people treat it with fear and reverence. I don't think any particular approach, nobody has figured it out in terms of the best approach. But I used to really mock people as being prudish or repressed. And I understand better why people are like that. I mean, you can say that a benefit of repression is, repressed people, when they learn about sexuality, they learn about it firsthand and they get to have their own original experience of it. And that's really important, because if you have a secondhand experience of sex, that kind of affects you forever. And that's not right. It should be yours.
No, but also
for
like
yourself.
Like even just the predication of like worth around like that final orgasm. I was listening to my friend Yana's podcast.
Yana's Papas?
No, on Twitter, Yana. It's called Hate Fiction, her podcast. And she had a Neko Girl on, runs that magazine.
Oh, of course.
We had Neko Girl on once. We should bring her back again.
Yeah.
They were talking about like how it's weird that like the only quantifiable aspect of like porn enjoyment and like market testing is the orgasm, obviously. Although the orgasm, like Link was saying, has like a number of like different cultural components, but it's very like indicative of like the sort of uniquely American like quantity brain, like efficiency maxing mindset, where it's like real sexuality. Not that I would fucking know for obvious reasons, because I'm an incel virgin loser. Real sexual experience. It's like it's an integral experience with the partner, and the orgasm throughout human history as well, when it comes to the literature around sexuality, when it comes to the art around sexuality, like the orgasm is not like the sum total, like I have to achieve this goal of like orgasming. It's rather the sort of experience and the state of erogenous ecstasy that you're engaging with another person. But like the thing is with pornography, like there are people who like try to do this where they have quote unquote like female choice or ethical porn, but like really you can't do it because this very like business model framework of like why people use pornography and why pornography has become like the sum total cultural production, even though in my opinion, I think it's very much anti-culture. It's like orgasm is everything because you can't really simulate that same experience of sexuality. Like you can kind of with eroticism and erotic artwork, but like when it comes to pornography as we understand it in the digital age, it's like orgasm has to be that thing or else like, you know.
Well, there was
the female orgasm is fake, by the way. It is hysteria. Doesn't exist. No, I'm kidding.
There was a good comment, by the way, from Glasscake. Anyone else notice
Nina,
the
does the
shift?
female orgasm exist? Actually, I'm kidding.
Let Lev finish, please.
Okay, so,
Anyone else notice the shift of people being ashamed of sharing their pornographic interests on Twitter to straight up online exhibitionism? So that was a comment from Glasscake, wonderful viewer of the show, regular guest. So I'm noticing this a lot too, where it does start to become a lot more like just a working thing. It's not so much about the mystery, like Nina said. And it does feel like if we're exposed to so many things, then where is the magic? Where is the whole reason for discovering different things? It's like we end up getting spoiled. Like we know how the game ends. And I think that makes the world a lot less magical. But Glink, what is your experience growing up? Why are you in this particular mindset? You were going around different Comic Cons, I believe, talking to people about NoFap. And what was the vibe that you got from them? So those would be the two questions. How you were brought up and what you got from talking to a lot of these people at these comic conventions.
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to say, I'm thankful you brought on Nina because she put some words there that she put some things into words that I don't always say, but like direct experience is a good way to put it because it is something. It's like, I think maybe this is a little dramatic, but I think it robs people of direct experience. It denies the direct experience and shows there's an easy outlet for this amazing direct experience. It's not just watching somebody travel, watching somebody eat food. It's watching somebody and getting secondhand enjoyment through a self-gratifying action of one of the most intense, if not the most intense emotions, feelings. I mean, this is why people live, is to love other people, to be in relationships, and to have sex. But that is not this, this isolated feel-good chemical. It's part of this process. And I think when it's isolated through these mediums and through the culture of using these mediums as that, it reflects throughout the rest of society as, well, now sex in general is now this more commodified, isolated experience rather than part of this loving relationship, But, so that's great. I mean, I'm glad you kind of just opened my eyes to like different ways to even talk about it. But you asked me, well, let me tell you this. I'll tell you my experience and like also just kind of experience of other people, because the reason I find this topic so interesting is because it's already a big topic, but it's only going to get bigger as Gen Z gets older, as they come to terms with their sexuality and how they came to form their sexual identities and expressions and desires. And I think you wouldn't be surprised to find that many of them are informed partially or maybe even mostly by pornography that they consumed either as children or teenagers or whatever. And that's exactly my experience, which I don't think is uncommon. My first time orgasming was watching porn on the Wii Internet channel, not even a smartphone. It's like, even, and this is also like back to the parents thing. It's like, well, where are the parents? Like, okay, I don't blame my parents for not supervising me using the Wii in my room when I was 14. It's like, that's not a parent's problem. It's a problem of pervasiveness of pornography, to put it one way. But you know, so
Consumer
like,
sexuality is fucking abysmal if you look at statistics, right? Well,
yeah,
of course, Shannon would say that that's perfect and wonderful.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I don't think she'd say
Sorry,
that.
Blink,
but-
finish.
okay.
Sorry.
yeah. Well, it's basically just from my experiences, people I've talked with, people I've been with, younger people. It's like this is not a foreign concept to them. Is you know, this warped perception of the self, of the sexual side of oneself and their sexual desires, and also just like how much power that porn has over them. These are conversations I have all the time. I've interviewed people. I've you know, my friends, myself. It's not like this is becoming more of a normal thing. And I hate to like make this a generational gap, but I've noticed the people online and otherwise who have a problem like conceptualizing how big of a deal this is didn't grow up with access to pornography in this way. And they view it now as like, well, like Nina was saying, I think there is something to, in your formative years, when you're exposed to it, it's like, I've never had an orgasm before. And I just had this immense rush of feel good stuff. And it was while watching two people fuck. Like there's nothing about that that's natural or healthy, in my opinion. And that's only getting more common. So I don't know if that answers your thing, but
Yeah.
that's kind of why I see this as an important discussion.
But even like seeing two people fuck in like a room, like if you're a voyeur, that's obviously, I think like voyeurism is again one of those fetishes that are older.
Yeah,
as
that's
well as
different.
itself,
Yeah.
But there's something different about like
Well,
hearing like being a cuck in the hotel cuck chair, as opposed to like watching a guy being cucked in the hotel cuck chair.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no way for $20. Let's go. I'm doing the PPP thing. $20, glow in the dark. I'm not going to repeat what else Terry Davis said in that clip, but you know what I mean. Glow in the dark.
Another great comment from Glasscake. And by the way, more super chats. We got a $20 super chat coming in that
that's
I'll say
good,
later.
yeah.
But Glasscake, I read his comments for free just because I love Glasscake so much. So he says, my first exposure was torrenting porn and putting it on my PSP.
Oh God, that's so zoomed.
There we
yeah.
go.
That's-
There you go.
But speaking of that Zoomer culture, so Glink, when you were, the second part of my question is, when you were attending all these different comic conferences and you were speaking to people about NoFap and things of that nature,
Oh.
what did you pick up on what is going on with this next generation?
Okay, hold on. Wait, here's what happened. I went to Comic-Con and they had a open mic comedy night, and I went there and I just it was kind of meant to be a joke. I was talking about
Did you do the
NoFap.
Sam Hyde thing? where
Yeah,
you
I was
on
trying to
them?
do a Sam Hyde thing, but I was not as successful. I did go to AVN, the porn convention, though, with a NoFap shirt. I did do that, but that was, I mean, well, I'll tell you this. You know what was interesting about it? I interviewed porn stars, and some of them were like, yeah, like they were kind of understanding. They were like, yeah, I've been with guys where this has been a problem. You know, I've been in relationships where the guy clearly had a porn addiction, or he had some sort of, you know, he just had some sexual frustration that they
Which
were
porn
tying to
stars,
porn.
Blink? Do you know them? The names?
I don't even, they were like D-list. Like,
Oh, they're not like
yeah, no.
they're not like Corey Chase level type.
Yeah. And then one of them was like,
Lisa Ann.
it was almost as if like she was trying to protect her career or her industry, because she was like, what? Like she was like so taken aback that anybody could possibly view it as a negative. She's like, what are you talking? I don't know anything about that. She was just like playing dumb. Maybe not, but yeah, that was mostly, I mean, you know, what's also interesting is,
Shrimp of the Anus.
I don't know what to make. I honestly don't have any experience with, and I don't know what to make of hentai and stuff, but that's a whole nother, that is like Comic-Con, like Anime Expo. Like you will see people, I mean, online, on Twitter, just refresh your Twitter page. You'll see all over it. Right. I don't know what the deal. Hentai is like a different level of, I can't decide if it's more or less degenerate, but it's something.
It's from what I understand, this is what weebs have told me. It's like the platonic form of womanhood to them. That's why the anime girl is like so captivated, especially for the political right. Like it's the anime girl is like every sort of externality of like what womanhood
Wholesome.
has become in the modern world is like gone.
Okay.
Like, the
Oh
skin-
man. Oh my god. The eyes of the ideal anime waifu are void of the gaping
Let me
hole
read
left by.
you. I'm going to find you an old Maya quote. I have the Maya archive.
Oh,
I
man.
will find you. But before that, Nina, answer my question. Does the female orgasm exist?
Oh God.
And is it not just hysteria that has destroyed civilizations by
Geo,
letting it propagate?
it doesn't exist.
Oh, see, I knew
Don't
it.
worry. It's
I
a
knew it.
myth.
Now, Nina,
It's
you
just hysteria.
now Nina, you can draw your Nina. You can draw your own hentai. I mean, you have drawn naked women, naked cartoon women in the past. What do you notice, like in the animation? Well, I don't know. How much are you even a part of, like the animation community, animation sphere? Like, do you notice that there is this, let's say, attraction to this platonic form of, Bill Plimpton likes to draw, sexy ladies. So
And he's a great, outstanding guy.
no, not Clinton, Plimpton.
Oh,
Different.
Plimpton.
Yes. Wait, Glenn, you've never heard of Bill Plimpton before? Bill Plimpton is
No.
an amazing independent animator. He's done a prolific amount of work doing all these independent films. And Nina, you've known Bill for a long time, right?
Yeah, and everyone likes drawing sexy ladies. I like it. Dudes
Yeah.
like it. I think you look at ancient art and there's lots of sexy ladies in ancient art. Right now I'm I've chosen to design a character, the scapegoat queen. And I'm like, what's her body like? And it's like, well, she's a queen and she should be beautiful and fertile like all the mythical queens. But I'm also thinking like I'm an angry menopausal, almost 54-year-old scapegoat. And since this is, about me and reconciling with my role as a scapegoat in these fucking animation and comics communities, not to mention the rest of the world. So I'm like, do I want to like keep doing these, beautiful, fertile ones, or do I want to make something that's like, I don't know, different? But regardless, I think, the so-called male gaze is so widespread, and we all learn it from media. When you're a woman and you're drawing female forms, I at least am like, I don't know if this is internalized male gaze or if this is like joy of the female form from the inside, trying to express that. I don't know. I don't know if I ever will.
Berger did a massive disservice to, ironically enough, to art and aesthetics by demonizing the male gaze, in my opinion. But that's.
But I think this would be a good time to bring in the Apocalypse animation and tie it together with pornography, if that is possible to do in some way.
Oh, yeah.
So okay,
That's
well,
right.
yeah. So Book of Revelation, Gio, you're the resident Catholic here. You're the expert. So
jeez.
would you be able to thread together the bridge from pornography to Book of the Revelation?
Oh, fuck, I could do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Nina, do it.
Well, we could say pornography is a sign of the apocalypse, as is everything else in modern culture.
Exactly.
Sign of the
but how do-
apocalypse isn't
how do you-
necessarily bad, but there's the whole whore of Babylon. So I don't know if you can bring.
Well, it's
up
a sowing of sexual
Yes,
inequity. That's
I'm
pretty
gonna bring
much-
everything up here
Yeah.
on the screen over here.
I don't know if it's sexual iniquity. So the story of Revelation itself, I think, is what some people call revenge porn. You should go to apocalypseanimated.com.
Yeah, that's
No,
what I'm doing
that's
right.
the scapegoat queen.
Wait, hold on 1 second.
I
Okay.
have, by the way, I have the Maya threads from ancient long time ago. So you want me to read this absolute Kino, Lev?
1 second. Let me go into
All
the
right.
Apocalypse Animated. Okay, so this is the Apocalypse Animated site. You see
Yeah.
over here? Where would you like me to go, Nina?
Chapter 17, the whore of Babylon.
All right, here we go. Check it
Yeah.
out.
Oh,
Well, since we're talking about
That's the
porn
void.
and whores, and it's the abyss. She's got the abyss there. Now,
it's very much Freudian, like in the sense that the propagation, or well, even more Jungian, where the propagation of the life whole is also the end of humanity. The feminine is the Alpha Omega like Shivik like destroyer within the Book of Revelation.
Oh
So,
wow, this is
yeah.
interesting. This is
Well,
the Bill Guy's
I-
animation, right?
I read a Jungian analysis of the Book of Revelation where he described the Whore of Babylon as
Yeah.
a negative Venus.
Yes, yes.
And
She's much more Apollonian in that sense.
John of Patmos expresses some issues with women, issues with the female. This is like there's a kind of hatred of the feminine. There's also a reverence of the feminine in the Book of Revelation. Everything in Revelation is really split. It's sort of like a book of splitting. Everything becomes good or evil. You go to heaven or hell. You're for us or against us.
Yeah, but see, the biblical, like, religious hatred of a certain manifestation of the feminine, that is you need that in order to have a reverence of true femininity. But modern shitlibs cannot understand this.
Yeah, I think that's a
Okay.
good point. That's a great point. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, there's definitely
you need
also
incel misogyny to have the simp.
Well,
They both exist.
you need order to confront the chaos, which is feminine. I think feminine is the mystery, is the chaos. And you need some level of order, some level of saying no, some level of boundaries to have a good balance of that. But I think with porn, well, I don't even know if that relates to porn exactly.
Well,
but-
it does. It
I love
relates
how our
to
milkers are like coming out of her fucking. Those are some glorious milkers.
Well, it also relates to the
They're
symbol of
infinite.
the. It also relates to the symbol of the Sri Yantra. I don't know if you guys are seeing it on screen right now. I'm looking-
And
Yeah. So
Shakti.
yeah. So this wonderful Indian girl that I know, she told me about how the male is represented, well, first by this infinity point, and second by this frame, this rigid frame that's around this energy. And this energy is the female energy, this chaotic energy that is contained by the frame. And that way they work together. Because if it's just the frame, then there's nothing there. There's no change going on. And feminine energy is change, and that is the change that you're
That's
seeing with
what
all these
Nietzsche meant.
leaves.
by
you guys are speaking
bring
my
the whip.
language.
Yeah, that's what Nietzsche meant when he said "bring the whip," and also men love danger and men love playing, and women are dangerous playthings.
Yes.
That's.
I want to make a comment here about all this because I think I can sort of understand how this relates to porn, and like the Whore of Babylon and all that, which is so. What Nina was saying about there being this sort of mystery to sex and sexuality, and I think that's also personified by women, by the feminine, whatever you want to call it as well. I think women themselves and the way that they feel and the way that they think is not meant to be so rigid or defined or structured. It's more imaginative. It's more feelings based. Typically people will say women are emotional. Sure. But that's kind of like just one aspect of it, you know, but I do think that's true to some extent. Not that men can't be.
Men are emotional.
Yeah, of course. Everyone's emotional, but I do think men tend to be more logic driven, generally speaking, and women tend to be more.
Well, women.
I don't know. Men like punch their fists through walls, and women,
Well,
Only
other-
white men do that.
and
Only white men do that.
other men. I've seen men just be like super irrational and emotional. It's weird that we have these ideas about it, but I just.
well, I don't know.
There's
I think
different
what Glink
ways
means-
that we express our emotionality, but
No, the problem is that porn is like the final revealing. It's very like
The final reveal.
anatomical, and it's almost like the woman becomes okay in porn. The woman through the gaze and through the
women-
extreme feats. Go ahead, Glenn. Go ahead. Sorry.
I dare say, the woman is conquered by porn.
No, but the woman is conquered by porn, but then porn is the conduit by which woman becomes the conqueror and takes on this unnatural role.
No, sorry.
But she
It's-
herself is subjugated too as well.
Yes, actually, what it is the feminine is defined. It becomes defined, and in doing
Yes.
so, the
Yes.
men
Yes.
are confined. I mean, to rhyme,
Exactly.
but you know what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like women are fully defined, and porn, because it's very anatomical, it's very like mechanical, and the fact that we have like the fact that porn is slotted and categorized into different tropes and fetishes. That is also indicative of porn being like this object of mass mechanical and digital reproduction.
It's a commodity, yeah.
Yeah, but also through that commodification, even though women are subjugated and oppressed by it, they also through that, like, this is, again, I know this is kind of like Mark's brain where he says like people under oppression under capitalism will then oppress other people, but it's like now women becomes instead of like taking on her like natural spiritual archetypal role, now woman becomes like she herself is dominated, but then she also becomes a conduit by which men are dominated and really spiritually cucked by pornography, in my opinion. But like, you know what I mean? Because then it's because porn is very much like, it's female centric, but it's a very bad form.
Nina's got her hand up.
A long time ago,
like nobody cares about male porn.
A former friend of mine said that all porn is gay porn.
Yes,
because porn with women is made by men, and they're using women to basically jerk off other men. They're using women to make men come.
Now, is it not true?
There was spiritually gay.
There was this Russian intellectual. I don't remember his name right now, but he had a very funny point about how even when we look at romance itself, the idea of romance was created by male writers, many of whom were gay.
Yes, it's true. It's true because romance, the way that it's been understood post-romanticism in the 19th century, is very much an affectation of eros only, whereas love in the ancient world had a variety of different connotations that encompassed religion, society, culture, and so forth. But here are some amazing and stunning quotes by Maya. As we all know, Maya was exposed as a groomer and so forth, so take this with a grain of salt. But Maya, I realized, had amazing insights. This is one of them. This is really gonna liven things up. You ready for this, chat? Anime resonates specifically because it depicts archetypal ideas of femininity and threatens beta male and broken women so much that for the same reason. Only the physically impotent drained spiritual incel only the physically impotent drained spiritual incel could ever call it sexually toxic. It must be understood that the love a man holds for his anime waifu is not the same as one he holds for a woman, but all women. It is the worship of a deity. The waifu is an idol representing aspects of eternal feminine. It is in between those fundamental archetypes of femininity, which, despite the pretense of a narrative, exist within the anime character as a complex of eternally consistent points, as drawn from a database, whereas idealistic projection occurs, presenting opportunity for love. The anime waifu isn't abstracted into dilution, but distillation. Each embodiment and each embodying a small multitude of female archetypes. Their simplistic, samey appearance is simply efficient convergence on attraction-maxed neoteny. Irrelevant except where it relates to spiritual archetypes. So, well, that's a whole fucking mouthful. But, well, we all know that Maya had a thing about neoteny. Let's just not going to deny that. But that is why right-wing men love the waifu. You are a spiritual low-T Norwood cuck if you dare question the love of anime waifus. There you go. Hottest of hot takes.
There we go. So before we go, I want to ask Link. You've been looking at me
scrolling.
Oh,
that's such a fucking disaster. Oh my god, love.
You've been looking at me scrolling through the Apocalypse Animated, and by the way, it's apocalypseanimated.com. That is where you go, and you can see the full thing that Nina created.
I'll be right back. Hang on a second.
Well, I was just about.
Oh, Nina made all these.
Yeah, Nina made all these.
These are beautiful. These are amazing.
These are amazing. And I've known Nina since 2004 from the New York animation community. And it is very special for me to be able to not only keep in touch, but have somebody like her on, kind of like a connection to the past. Because it seems like the more we go in terms of all these years, they pass by. And I don't like this fragmentation that's been occurring. Like Nina, I was just saying, I don't like this fragmentation that's been occurring of people who have known each other, then they stop knowing each other, and they're stuck in these internet bubbles, never to see each other again. And I don't know if the same thing's been happening with you. in terms of the people that you've
Yeah.
kept in touch with in New York City and the people that Glink has kept in touch with. Like, what do you notice is going? Because you're on Facebook, not a lot. You put a timer, you put a limit, you have some kind of a device that locks you out of Facebook. But what do you notice is going on? Like we talked about Gen Z. What do you notice is going on with, I'd say, your generation, kind of like in between your and my generation, who are still on Facebook? What is going on with their minds? How are they going to? How are they going to adapt to what's coming, to the apocalypse? How are they going to adapt to the apocalypse?
This is the apocalypse.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny you say what. First, let me ask you, what are you talking about when you say the apocalypse?
I like thinking of the apocalypse as in revelation, as in something that has not been revealed before is revealed. And I think it's an ongoing process where we have the internet now, we have the ability to communicate. I think that this is going to give not a lot of people, but at least a few curious people like Glink, for example, give them insight into things that you would have to go into some dusty library, centuries ago and try to uncover certain things. And now it's just like all out there.
The internet
problem
is
is not-
revelations.
Well,
It's
this
a part
GIF
of
in
is
particular
Revelations?
is probably the best one in my opinion.
What is the best one?
This GIF right here, because
Oh yeah.
like the female, the milk of life, the breast, is giving life to basically all aspects of experience, both positive and negative. So fruit, power, the running of horses, the grays, money, like power itself. All of these things emanate from the originary.
Oh my God.
source of
Like,
the
can you
universe.
read? Can you read the thing that it's illustrating? Because the whole point of
And the
this is
fruits of my soul lusted after the departed from thee, and all things which were divine.
no
dainty
above.
and-
No, that
oh,
that-
above. Sorry.
and cinnamon and
Wait.
odors and ointments and frankincense
Frankincense
and
and
wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and breasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men.
those
Wow.
are all
But
things
all
that
of
they're
them-
people. They're weeping because they're never going to see these things.
Oh
again,
my
because
God.
These are
right.
these are in Babylon. So if you look above, there's the gif of the merchants weeping. And
Oh, the merchants weeping.
those are merchants
Yeah,
weeping.
CGO, the merchants are no longer happy.
They're weeping, and
Oh.
all of these fine things that they traded in are going up in flames because Babylon is going up in flames.
See, when Babylon is destroyed, the merchants no longer. Never mind.
It seems like what this symbolism conveys to me. I didn't read all of this, but what this is conveying seems to be like the fruit of life, the everything of life, all the good stuff ultimately that we experience comes from comes from birth, right? Comes from being born out of a woman. This, as we talked about, this embodiment of this feminine. And I think in many ways, what porn is the complete opposite of that. It's like
There's no life there.
there is no life. It's a void. I mean, on a very physical, literal level, sperm is being jerked off into nothingness, right? So it's like a void in that sense. But also, it's an emotional void. And I feel like this is profound to me because I feel like the implications of that on such a massive scale are apocalyptic.
No, but also, Glink, I would say that it encompasses something more insidious. This is a real hot take. You ready for this hot take? You have nowadays, because we are so disconnected from nature, you have the fetishization of the reproductive element. You have like whole categories of pornography around pregnant women, impregnation, cream pies, so forth. And it's always for some creepy reason. I wanted to write a paper on this. I was reading some like studies on it. It's like kind of like fucked up how much it's also related to a lot of can we say the I word on YouTube?
I have no idea. I don't even
Incest,
know what the I word.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it's related to a lot of like incestuous material as well, and how it's sort of like it fetishizes something which comes the most natural to humanity. It's this hideous inversion of what sexuality is, like the purpose of it is. And it's also crazy how a lot of it is also related to the normalization of like incest and fetishizations of different like paraphilias. So you have like the sort of like fetishism around the reproductive aspect, but also the fetishism around to me, I don't believe in like the Freudian interpretation of it. Like I think that Oedipalization is one thing, but he like interpreted it as a very narrow, like mechanical and individualistic sense. I think like when the reason people seek out this like disgusting content is not because like, oh, I watch, you know, what did the Rittenhouse kid have on his fucking Twitter tab? Brady Sis, I think. Yeah, Brady Sis. I don't want to like watch like fake cest because like with mother son or you know daughter or sisters, the sister especially is the big one. I don't think it's because they actually want to go out and be like, you know, I have a sister, I'm gonna fuck my sister. I think it's more of like these relationships are fetishized because it's like it's a form of connection that is like by definition inborn, right? Yeah. Like it's like if you read this one book of it's a short novella. It's by this writer called Anna Niss. She wrote this book called House of Incest, and it wasn't like specifically about like a narrative of around it, like, you know, actually doing it, but it's more of like when you have a close-knit family, there's like these sort of repulsion yet attraction there that's like very weird and fucked up. But it's like she wrote these beautiful passages about it, and it almost reminds me of how in pornography the reason these things are normalized is because you have a simulation of intimacy. And so it's not the Oedipalization of like you want to go out and do it with your family member. It's rather these things become a fetish.
It's like another layer of Plato's cave in a way. It's like you're creating a closed loop because you're not giving this pleasure to anybody. So you're the only witness to this pleasure. And it's kind of like the Ouroboros in a way.
Well, but also you have this weird thing where...
Sorry to interrupt. It would literally be an Ouroboros if you can suck your own dick.
Right. Well, I think that also is a thing in pornography. By the way, the Marilyn Manson. Now that's not real. By the way, he took out his rib. That's all bullshit. But like, there are people they say that can do that.
Ron Jeremy, I believe he was.
He could do that. That's right.
You know, this is. I don't mean to cut you off if you're.
No, but wait. Last point would be that I noticed that in pornography, there's also this fetishization that comes along with the incest stuff of the dominating feminine. The sister is coaxing you, the mother, especially the mommy GF, the MILF pornography. That is such a powerful cultural force that has been told. By the way, out of all the sexual fetishes, and there's done today, I've read these papers on it. One of them actually was by this feminist. It's called the book is called The Queer Witch, if I recall. But queering in the academic term, you know what I mean? Where she writes about how the mother being the dominant sexual figure has been an aberration throughout human history. It's always like when it comes to either sexual abuse or sexual fetishization, it's always been the dominant masculine, right? In BDSM culture, statistically, it's always the male who is the dom, right? So, but nowadays with the mommy GF, the MILF, the so forth, it seems that the feminine now takes on this weird inverted role.
It's the masculine role.
Feminine.
It's the masculine
role. Exactly. The MILF porn star, like the Lisa Ann. Oh, sorry, McGee. I shouldn't name them because McGee's like I'm fucking outing myself by naming them. But I do not watch them. I purely
wait. So does that mean that the MILFs are more like men than they are like?
Yes.
Well, they have a powerful sexual role as a man would.
I wanted to, I mean, I think this is all very interesting, and there's a lot more to be said about the symbolism, the implications, and all that. But I was going to also maybe talk a little bit, because a lot of people, or whoever's listening and watching, do you have any like advice you want to share, or like just experiences about how really to break yourself free from pornography? If you have, or like, I mean, it's not always a finite thing, but I feel like there are things one can do to, because I think a lot of people feel this way, but they don't necessarily see an alternative, or they don't see, they don't see a way out, or they don't hear about that. And I don't know, I guess that gets sometimes personal, but.
Well, there are certain things, for example, like, I don't know, this is not as close to what you were asking, but it reminded me of it. There's a movie out there which I really like, and I understand that it's been in a way tainted by Bob Guccione's vision, but I'm talking about the movie Caligula with Malcolm McDowell.
No, Caligula.
Yeah, so I really
Oh,
enjoyed
no!
I really enjoyed that movie, and in a way, I would say even the pornographic scenes were true to the time that Rome was in, and so that is the one thing that I would say I may differentiate maybe with Glink here, because those are erotic scenes, but they are part of the whole Roman aesthetic. Same thing, for example, with that HBO series Rome with Polly Walker, also a MILF, I guess you could say, when she was exposing her back, her butt and her, just like her backside, completely naked in the bath. She was very beautiful, very attractive. I think that there is a certain liminal space where that eroticness and, you could say pornography as well does meet up with art. I don't
Yeah.
think that a lot of porn today has that aspect. There was, though, pornography like back in the 70s.
Yeah, but
what
Gucciono is
I-
the best example, Lev. He
Yeah,
was
or-
the one that wanted to create artistic pornography.
So I'd be curious, like Glink, I want to answer your question as well about the advice for bridging out. Oh, Nina's got her hand up. So yeah.
Well, okay, a way to connect the apocalypse to porn. You were talking about Rome and the decline of Rome and the decadence of Rome
Yeah, Gibbons
as
said
it was
that.
falling, and the Babylon in the apocalypse was supposedly Rome, and John of Patmos was an angry, persecuted Christian who was pissed off about things. So we too are in the United States is a declining hegemony,
Empire.
and we're having all kinds of parallels to the decline of Rome. So if we think of the apocalypse as maybe a metaphor for the decline of Rome, then
Especially if a certain based world leader has his way soon.
Well,
coming.
I think of it almost in the other way, that the fall of Rome is a metaphor for the apocalypse. And by that I mean these stories, I think the stories from the Bible, they might have been written or based on certain time periods, but I think history has shown us that it's cyclical in a way. And these things these ideas and these structures and these archetypes transcend time, really. We're just acting out Rome in the modern day. If that makes sense. Yeah.
But also it's weird, like when it comes to the MILF, how the MILF has the normal markers of fertility and attractiveness, because despite what the modern, third wave feminist says, right? Like young women possess an archetypal form of attractiveness because of fertility and so forth. But when the MILF comes about, you have this weird situation where the reproductive aspect is complicated. I mean, of course, women in their 40s probably have kids, not that would be advisable, but like when it comes to the MILF, it's like they have the typical traits of attractiveness, but yet that sort of the fertility is either denied or complicated. So it's like you have this weird sort of crossing of wires when it comes to the collective psyche, which is why a lot of like sexy, attractive older women, they tend to go for men that they can control more, because
Younger
they
men.
themselves have a very almost masculine character
Yes.
to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then what happens with women like Madonna, for instance? You've seen that very demonic looking.
hideous. Oh man. No, did you see the one photo of like the fake ass that's gone awry? Like she had like the Brazilian ass job that just looks terrible. I mean that, like, see Madonna here, like Madonna, she is such like, what is Mark Dice? Mark Dice used to have names for them, like she's the satanic slut or whatever. Madonna did such a fucking disservice to women. I'll tell you how. Because if Madonna would have accepted aging gracefully, she could have been a model for older women everywhere of how to be someone who is not a silver fox in like a male attractiveness sense, but I mean a woman who is confident
With class.
in her older age. Exactly, with class.
You know who's
But
confident in their older age is menopausal women who don't give a shit about men anymore.
Yeah,
That's
that is true.
The thing is,
that
men
the
don't
crone
like them.
archetype.
We become invisible to men because we don't give a shit about them anymore, and we're not.
No, but
we
Nina,
don't
but
want
not
them
always
anymore.
though.
But that is
Not
that too
always.
extreme? Is that
Bring
too
that
extreme?
back, though.
Wait,
Yeah.
Glink?
Well, I was just gonna say that may be true, but is that almost too extreme? Like maybe you should give a little bit of a shit about men.
Okay, we give a little bit of shit, but not like when I was so horny when I was young. There was like, and it was physical. There was just, it didn't matter what my brain said. It was like,
weren't you yourself bisexual or?
Huh? Was I bisexual?
You said you were bisexual, or
no? That was the other.
That was
woman.
Shannon.
No, she's bisexual.
No, but you,
which she, you know, porn helped
Yeah.
her helped her discover that. I am not very bisexual. I'm pretty low on the Kinsey scale, but I was just compelled, you know, desiring men, and with menopause, that is lessened to a point where it's so manageable that I am fine living without them, and the contrast is huge. And there's a lot of women like me, and of course it comes with, you know, women are like, we're aware we look different at this age, and lots of women say that they become invisible because men are not looking at us the same way. And I feel like it's a gift of nature that while that's
zoom out a
happening,
bit,
we
right?
stop caring if everything's working right. I feel like everything
you become
is
like
working right.
incels in some ways.
No, we're Volcels.
Yeah.
No,
Because we're just celibate, or not.
You know
I
what?
shouldn't even say we. I should say that like
There are plenty of
I
older women having sex, Nina.
No,
I'm
there
sorry.
are. That's why I'm
I hate to
saying
burst your bubble, but especially nowadays with pornography, now that they've normalized the MILF, there are tons of older women
that
who
hasn't
are
been the
going with the
issue.
younger guys.
The issue is not that's
No,
the issue
I'll
isn't needing pornography.
though.
But what I'm saying is that it is so freaking liberating to not want to do that anymore.
No, what's funny though is that archetypally, when it comes to women, like not that I know because I'm a man, right? Like I
You
went through-
definitely don't know. I know you do not know what I am
No,
talking
no,
about.
but
but
what
if
I
there's
mean-
any women listening,
No, I know, but what I
Yeah,
think is
like,
like
all
women though.
all 0.1% of them, yes.
Right. Oh, exactly. No, but with women, when they reach puberty, it's the sort of terror of the gaze where all of a sudden it's like, you know that part, you know, what was that like bad William Dafoe movie, the vampire one? Daybreak?
dude, focus
You know-
on your point. I beg of you.
This is part of
I
it.
beg
You
of
know in
stop.
Daybreak where they discover the cure for vampirism, then they keep biting each other and it's like a cascading thing like a virus. It's like, you know, as soon as the vampire becomes a human, all of a sudden all the other vampires go right to him like for blood, right? It's like as soon as you reach puberty as a woman among your peer group with young boys, it's like all of a sudden the machine gun turret of the gaze looks at you, right? It's like, oh my God. But as a man, especially a less conventionally attractive man, it's the opposite. It's more of like you are ignored by the attention of women when you achieve puberty. But with women, but what you're saying is that when women achieve a certain age after menopause, it's almost like you're free of always being looked at.
Yes, it's a goddamn
with-
relief. But even more than that, you're free of wanting the attention.
But there are some women though who say that they never because there's the terror of being looked at during the vulnerable young age when you achieve puberty. But there's some women who don't have that because they're femcells or unconventionally attractive or whatnot. But when it comes to men are very different in that we have to earn that attention. Or there's some pretty boys. There's the beautiful boy archetype. But by and large nowadays, especially because women's attractiveness has been fucked with by social media and by dating apps, it's like men more than ever like have to like almost earn that attention, right?
By the way, I'm
But-
going to interrupt this because Lev is now showing the last part of the apocalypse, and this was a profound experience that I had, since we're talking about the feminine before and like the perverted feminine.
And I heard
or
a great voice.
the hated feminine of the Whore of Babylon, but the New Jerusalem is also feminine. And as I actually illustrated it, my mind boggled because I had read it several times before I illustrated it. But as I was illustrating it, I was like, oh my God, there's something else going on in this last bit. And if you keep looking at the pictures, if Lev keeps scrolling down, I will let you try to guess what occurred to me about this last bit.
But if you're unbelievable, holy crap!
I could see some things that I.
All right, let's see. Glink,
Well,
what are you seeing?
I might be
You're
completely.
gonna keep scrolling.
All right, we're not there yet.
Well,
And
I mean, it's a cumulative thing.
hmm And by the way, everybody's loving these animations, Nina. The chat is going nuts.
That's
Oh
great.
boy, I want to. Well, I'll show you something else when you're.
Apocalypseanimated.com, by the way. Go there. Support Nina, please.
Yeah, these
There's
are-
no. It's free. The website's free. There's an app. If you have an iPhone, there's a $5 iPhone app where you can load the whole thing on your device and not be reliant on a iffy internet
I mean,
connection.
what I'm just seeing with this cube of power here. I mean, it is rigid. It's cube. It's a cube. It's not round and flowery. It's a rigid thing. So I am kind of curious about what is the specific feminine connection you see with this golden cube.
it seems to be depicting a harmony with structural geometry and fractal nature.
All right. Well, what got me about it, and if you just keep scrolling and go to the next one.
Oh, the next. Okay, here we go.
Well,
The
I mean,
book.
are you at the? Yeah. Look at that. That's the
Whoa.
river
Yeah,
of life.
river,
That's
right.
inside of the New
Oh,
Jerusalem.
well, there we go. That's the vagina right there with
The
the
river of life.
birth
Yes.
door. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, notice all the door. He goes on and on about these 12 gates.
hmm
So that's how it starts, is with the 12. Anyway, keep going, and then there's the tree of life, which
There you go.
straddles,
That's also another
straddles the river of life.
hmm
They're all filled with the consciousness of the new feminine.
It's like this box that's wet inside that has these portals,
It's-
and there's this river.
Oh
that
god, I was so
fountains-
close. I was so close to doing like a box eating joke, but
And he keeps
By the way,
talking about like the
squirting real,
fountains
yes
and
or no,
the fountains
chat?
and the waters and
Mhm.
and the portals and the fountains and the waters and the portals and the
There you
fountains and the waters and the portals. Like the text goes on and on about it, and not until I
There you
illustrated
go.
it did I go like, "Holy shit!"
By the
No,
way,
but
what
it's a
was, what was
return to the harmony of it instead of
It's
like
a return
the
to the
destructive
womb.
aspect of
by
it.
the way,
Now
what
it's-
was the reason, Nina, that you did the menorah here? So what does the menorah symbolize with this sun and
Read
moon?
the thing right above it. It says,
All right, and there shall be no light there, and they need no candle, neither light of the sun, for the Lord God giveth them light, and they shall reign forever and ever.
So I use the menorah a lot in this because there's this symbolism of 7 candlesticks over and over again, and 7 lights and 7 this and 7 that, and like the temple menorah that's what 7 candlesticks are. It's
Well,
the menorah.
Also, you have the 7 chakras in Hinduism, and you have the 7 planets. From what I understand, that's like the classical number of the planets around the sun. And the 12 gates you mentioned, that's like the 12 tribes of Jerusalem,
Yes.
Israel, and that's also the 12 signs of the zodiac, around which the sun goes according to the precession of the equinoxes.
And the 12 followers of Jesus.
Exactly, and the and also 12.
Gio's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
you
that
get
one's
the
mine.
yeah.
numbers.
also
Numbers are a
planet
big.
jujitsu.
Numbers are a big thing in the Book of Revelation.
Yeah.
7 being like the biggest and best, but yes, also there's 12. Also there's 4.
There's the two angels that come that get killed.
The
by
witnesses,
The
the 2 witnesses.
yeah, they get killed by the sinful people that deserve their own damnation.
Would you guys
And
be
then,
upset if I dip out?
Oh no, I will not, except for one thing. That first, I want to thank Glink so much for being here. I want Glink to promote whatever it is Glink wants to promote. And lastly, I just want to do a shout out to Glink's audience, the audience that's watching this right now on, I don't know if it's on YouTube as well, but I know that it's on Twitch. So listen, Glink's audience, if you enjoyed this, what Break the Rules does is we have these kind of link ups that you have never seen anywhere before. The kind of people that come here on BTR, it's never happened in the history of podcasting live streams, because I'm bringing in people from my past. I'm bringing in professionals and think tanks along with Anime Avatar Anonymous people. It all comes together. So if you want to be a part of this, and speaking of anime, after the stream concludes, I am going to link to the one that I'm going to have about anime. That's going to be a really cool stream on Thursday. So anyway, my point is, subscribe to BTR if you want to support what this is all about. Add a like. The likes are very helpful for the algorithm. And if you want to support us further, Patreon.com/break the rules. That is going to keep the river flowing, like Nina was talking about, the river of life. So that break the rules keeps going.
Flowing.
So anyway, Glink, right before you go, once again, brother, would you want anything to promote, anything to link up to?
California documentary.
Yeah. Well, to anyone listening who doesn't know me, just Glink on YouTube. Always working on another video. I'm actually working on a video about femininity, about artistry, because I went down to Miami and filmed these 3 different female artists, and that's going to be interesting. So look out for that. Glink on YouTube. Also, anyone watching me, you guys probably just heard him say that, but Break the Rules, one of the best podcasts out there, very underrated, and they do have amazing guests, great combinations. I like you guys because you're bridging the gap between, I mean, on one level, it's kind of bridging the gap between Gen X and Gen Z, which is great. They need to have more conversations because Gen X is incredibly based, and Gen Z has the potential to be. Fuck millennials. Millennials are a lost cause. Forget about them.
Yeah, we're fucked. Millennials are done for.
Yeah,
And
it
we're
is.
not the kill stream, okay? We're not the fucking...
It's over for millennials.
It's over for us. I hate to say it. It's also
yeah.
over for Ethan Ralph, by the way. Oh, sorry. That's our...
I
Get back
wanted to ask
competition
Glink
too hard.
something.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Nina, ask Glink.
I'm done. Yeah.
All right, so in your no fapping thing, I noted that you went to a Comic-Con to talk about no fapping. What is
There's
it
tons-
about the Comic-Con world where the no fapping message is particularly
Because they're all
important?
coomers.
Yeah, well, I mean, I went there and I talked about it on this like open mic thing, and part of it was just a joke because it's like I just had a video about it. I made a video about this whole no-fap movement, but I'm also trying to bring, or I was trying to, now it's more, well, I still am. I want to bring awareness to the pervasiveness of pornography, its effects, but also that you can have control of it. That's kind of what I was trying to talk about earlier with Geo and all that, is like, the good news is, though, you can have control of it. You could regain control over your sexuality, over your urges to some extent. And that's not to say anybody's perfect. I'm certainly not. But there's a real thing where when you kind of disconnect yourself from porn and from just masturbating all the time, you can enjoy a sexual fantasy, and it doesn't have to be tied to this super stimulating outlet, this kind of addictive behavior. And you can, I'm also not against, I think you can jerk off. I think it's fine to jerk off occasionally too, with your imagination. But, so I'm not against that, but I am against fapping like to porn frequently as like a just daily habit that every guy I've known growing up does. Like, it's a very common thing.
Well,
but.
there is one more thing we didn't get to. I know you have to go, but the real big mystery that I think people are going to start getting to the bottom of
Is squirting real?
Hold on, Gio. With this whole time of revelation, would be a reverse squirting, you could say, would be Kundalini. So that is, I think, the biggest question of all. What the hell is this liquid that's going up our spines?
Squirting.
Reverse squirting, like I said. When we redirect the
I think it's no
sexual energy.
bullshit. It's just
Lev,
piss, ladies
the
and gentlemen.
liquid is not literally going up your spine.
But it's spiritual liquid. That's my
Okay,
point.
all
Nina.
right, there you go.
Yes, you actually
It's
feel liquid
spiritually going
going.
up
You know,
yes,
It's
It's
spiritually
not
going-
real. It's
yeah.
just urine.
I heard something related to that there's a way, I have no idea if this is real, but that there's a way to orgasm as a man where you don't come, but you have like some sort of internal orgasm. And somebody once told me some Kundalini thing with
that's
it.
Kundalini.
Yeah. So
Tantra has a lot of.
that's interesting. I'm curious how to do that, but
Well, I have Kundalini in the back, so if you have any questions, you can follow whatever the heck is going to be happening with my life by going to my Twitter, twitter.com/LevPo. I will keep you.
That's what Arnold Schwarzenegger. Man.
I will keep you abreast, and I will.
Wait,
keep
you're gonna
you-
tell us about jizzing up your spine?
No, that's what Schwarzenegger meant when he worked out. He's like, I'm coming in the gym, I'm
yes.
coming at home, I'm coming up to it.
Big one at a time. Yes. Okay, so Glink, buddy, thank you so much.
yeah,
for
thank you
coming
guys for
in.
having me. I'm
Also, he-
down to do it again sometime.
Hell
Also,
yeah.
Glink does a podcast with Kino Corner.
Yes.
Oh,
What's it called? What's your podcast?
it's not out yet, but it will be soon. We're kind of pre-recording some episodes, but more to the point. I am going to have a discussion with Jonathan Pajot, who
Whoa!
you guys. I feel like you guys, because he's all about symbolism. You guys have already had him on. I know that. I listened to that one.
Yeah,
Great episode.
yeah.
But maybe him and Nina. I don't know if they've been on, but yeah, he's great. I can't wait to talk with him.
I'd
But
like to talk to him.
definitely.
I really want to have like a really deep conversation with one other person about
Yeah.
the apocalypse.
Yes.
Also, I got something on my Substack I'm trying to write. I have a bunch of writing projects. I have the series on the right, but I'm going to write something.
Hey guys.
Glink
Hey.
that is
Yeah, so-
you're going to like.
That's with you.
Oh,
yeah, but I'm going to talk with Jonathan Pajot about all these topics, and maybe we'll even use Nina's site as reference because this is symbolically
there you
like
go.
it's right there.
Symbolic.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yes, excellent.
And it stopped moving too. I don't know why it stopped moving.
That's just me being lazy. So
Oh,
people
yeah.
were asking, why do I still have the Christmas hat on my Twitter profile? That's just me being, selectively lazy. Like, I'm concentrating on other things, so I'm just not changing my Twitter profile. It just still has the Santa hat on from last Christmas. So anyway, Glink, thank you so much for coming in. I'm going to keep scrolling down over here.
As
Oh,
always, Glink.
yeah.
All right, guys,
Pleasure,
peace
my
out.
friend.
Bye-bye.
Catch you again.
I'll...
Okay. Hey guys. So that was good. I had a good time. I didn't get to talk as much as I wanted to with the Shannon girl because she kind of left early, but that's fine. I think Nina was actually more on my wavelength and more interesting, so that was great. I enjoyed that. I hope you guys did too. I'm gonna go actually because I don't like sitting at my computer all day streaming, to be honest. I wanted to do some stuff. I'm gonna work on my videos, but I do have some stuff coming. No pun intended. Like I mentioned, I went to Miami. I filmed this whole thing. I have some pretty amazing footage of what went down there. So that's going to be coming out probably even within a month or so. I don't think it's going to take that long. It's like probably like a shorter 20-minute video. We'll see, but that's always what I say at first, right? But we'll see. And I appreciate you guys. Coconut Senpai, your boy Trev, Maki 10, Recess Boss, Come Town Fan. I saw you guys in the thing. Give us a preview. I'll do another stream this week, and we could do preview then. I wasn't very prepared, as you could tell today, and I'm kind of flustered, but it's okay. This was mainly just for that stream, so we'll do another stream this week. Follow me on Twitter if you want to know when I'm going to go live, but I'll try to schedule it. All right, guys. Peace out for now. Okay, I'm going to